Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at something fascinating. It's about how a major public figure, Selena Gomez, has, well, turned a very personal struggle into this multi-million-dollar force for global change.
Exactly. We're looking beyond the glamour, the red carpet of the third annual Rare Impact Fund benefit that was held just recently, October 29th, 2025, out in LA.
Right, and we want to analyze the actual engine behind it all, the business model, the strategy. It's quite sophisticated.
It really is. And this isn't your typical celebrity gala, not at all. This event, held at Naya Studios West, it was also a big milestone 5 years since the Rare Impact Fund started.
5 years already, wow.
Yeah. So what we're really examining here is a kind of blueprint for, let's call it purpose-driven enterprise, where authenticity isn't just, a marketing buzzword, it's the actual financial bedrock.
So the model itself shows 5 years of impact building up, both in the money raised and maybe shifting how people think about these issues.
Precisely. Both dollars mobilized and cultural perception. That's key.
Okay, let's dig into this right away, because the ambition here is, well, it's huge, and they seem to be showing real progress. So maybe start with the results from this latest benefit.
Sure. So the benefit itself, the official title was A Night of Radiance and Reflection. And yeah, short term, a big success. It pulled in over $600,000 in just that one evening.
$600,000, that's significant.
It is. And it's all going to mental health organizations around the world. But, to really get the scale, you have to zoom out a bit.
Okay.
Since they started back in 2020, the Rare Impact Fund has already mobilized, get this, over $20 million in total.
Wow, $20 million in just 5 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible, especially for mental health, which, let's be honest, has always struggled for funding.
Massively underfunded historically. Oh, yeah. Exactly. And that $20 million figure, it means they're already 20% of the way to their ultimate goal.
Which is?
Which is extremely ambitious,
Yeah.
raising $100 million over 10 years.
100 million.
Yeah. And that money has a clear purpose: to dramatically expand global access to youth mental health services and, importantly, education.
Setting a $100 million target for youth mental health, given the history you mentioned, that feels like a statement in itself.
It's a monumental benchmark. It signals this is about sustained commitment, building actual infrastructure, not just short-term fixes.
And this really brings us to the core hook, doesn't it? This whole thing, the brand, the fund, the gala, it stems directly from Gomez's own very public, very personal mental health journey.
Right.
So we're looking at this huge mobilization of resources, but it's born from, well, vulnerability.
And that's what's kind of revolutionary here, the way she built it. She took her story, the struggles with bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression stuff. Society usually pressures people to hide, right?
Definitely.
And she didn't just share it. She embedded it as the core mission of a globally successful cosmetics brand. The transformation isn't just symbolic, it's structural.
The personal struggle literally powers the collective good.
Exactly. It takes authenticity from just being relatable, which is nice, to being financially and systemically powerful. That's the shift.
Yeah, that sets a really high bar. Okay, so let's move from that big picture mission down to the event itself, the third annual benefit. They've clearly got a style and atmosphere they're going for.
They absolutely have. If we look at, Section 2, A Night of Radiance and Reflection, you can see these really intentional design choices. Everything aimed at reflecting the fund's core values: accessibility, authenticity.
So not your traditional stuffy gala.
Not at all. They wanted to avoid that kind of historical grandeur feeling.
The venue choice seems key there. Naya Studios West.
Yeah, very strategic. Naya Studios West. It's this big 50,000 square foot luxury space in Hollywood. But it has this cool mix of industrial vibes, high ceilings, concrete floors, but with really high-end finishes.
So modern, minimalist.
Exactly. Yeah. By picking a space like that, versatile, contemporary, they immediately sidestepped the kind of formality, maybe even the perceived exclusivity of a, grand old ballroom. It felt more like a space for actual connection.
And that connects to the format too, right? No rigid sit-down dinner.
Totally deliberate. They went with a cocktail-style approach, which naturally encourages people to mingle, to have organic conversations. About 500 high-profile guests there.
So less formal structure, more interaction.
Precisely.
Yeah.
When you ditch the assigned seats and the, frankly, often long and mandatory speeches, you just lower the barrier for people to actually talk to each other. The event structure mirrored the mission: open, stigma-free dialogue.
Makes sense, aligning the experience with the philosophy.
Exactly. The physical space supported the message.
Now, you can't pull off something this size without serious backing. The corporate support was pretty visible, wasn't it? I saw names like Sephora, Pinterest, Lululemon, Paxson.
And that visibility is critical. It's not just about, flashing logos. It signals that this needs collective action. Tackling something as complex as youth mental health, you need the reach, the resources, the platforms of major global companies.
Right. You need everyone pulling together.
Yeah. And take Sephora, for example. They're not just a sponsor. They're the main retail partner for rare beauty worldwide. So their involvement is absolutely central to how the fund even gets its money. Their presence says this is a shared commitment, way beyond just a one-time donation.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the fashion. Always a big focus with Gomez. She had 2 custom looks, and the designer choice itself seemed pretty significant.
Oh, it was a beautiful touch. A real integration of her personal life and her public work. Both outfits were custom-made by the bridal designer Danielle Frankel.
Bridal designer, interesting.
Yeah, and the timing was perfect. It was widely noted as apropos because Gomez had just married music producer Benny Blanco like a month earlier, September 27, 2025.
Ah, okay, so it connects the event to that personal milestone.
Exactly. It framed the whole evening, happening just after the wedding, as this sort of extension of a really joyous personal moment. The fashion felt romantic, definitely high-end, but also deeply personal.
Can you describe the first look, the one she arrived in?
Sure. The first one was this really stunning mauve mini dress, made of silk twill wool, had this wide, high neckline, but then a really dramatic, deep, open back. So a nice balance of modern and elegant.
Sounds striking.
It was.
Yeah.
But the real showstopper was the matching shawl, floor length, trailing behind her, huge drama. And she accessorized with these hand-dyed satin pumps and some lovely, subtle Effie jewelry diamond drop earrings. It really fit that radiance and reflection theme, sophisticated, but also hinting at vulnerability.
And then she did a quick change for when she was on stage.
She did. Seamless transition. She changed into a sleeveless mini dress, this time in a burgundy matte silk crepe. So keeping that sophisticated shape, but moving into a richer, more autumnal color.
It's still elegant, though.
Oh, yeah. This one had a silk scarf neckline that just draped beautifully down her back. The change kept things dynamic, matched the flow of the evening, but still told a cohesive high-fashion story.
And even the small details, like her nails, they tied back into the brand and the fun, didn't they?
Ah, yes. This is where the integration gets really clever. The nail artist, Tom Batchick, created this look called Blush Jelly Chrome Nails. Super trendy, apparently combined 2 big 2025 nail trends.
Okay, blush jelly chrome. Got it.
But the important part is how Rare Beauty immediately used it. They documented her whole look, primer, perfume, everything, and shared it instantly. Gave fans a step-by-step guide on how to recreate it using Rare Beauty products.
Ah, so the glamour drives sales, which drives the 1% donation.
Precisely. Every fan trying that look is potentially generating that 1% for the Rare Impact Fund. It makes the connection between, buying makeup and doing good completely effortless for the consumer. It's brilliant, really.
That seamless loop is what makes it feel different from just, celebrity charity work. Okay, let's talk about the program itself. Jimmy Kimmel hosting, that's a big get.
Huge get. And Kimmel was kind of the perfect choice, wasn't he? He brings that weight, that credibility, but he can also handle serious topics with humor. He kept the evening engaging, but never, made light of the actual mission.
He walked that line well.
He really did. He balanced the laughs with a real reverence for the cause. His opening remarks were full of praise for Gomez, saying how everyone describes her as the nicest, the kindest, the most generous, genuine praise.
He also made a comment that seemed quite pointed, bringing in the real-world political context around funding.
Yes, he didn't shy away from that. He acknowledged how tough the political climate is right now, and then he specifically highlighted the organizations being honored, organizations whose vital funding, he joked, our president wants to cut.
Wow, that's direct.
It was a pointed jab, yeah, but delivered with humor. And it served a really important purpose. It reminded everyone in that room, all those high net worth guests, that private philanthropy isn't just a nice extra anymore. It's becoming essential, especially when public funding for mental health and social services is constantly under threat.
Right. It frames their donations as necessary, not just optional.
Exactly. It raises the stakes.
What about the entertainment? They seem to choose artists who align with the message, too.
They did. The musical acts were Laufey, the Icelandic indie artist, and the Marias, who are an LA-based indie band. And Gomez reportedly picked them herself.
Based on what?
Based on artistic excellence? Sure. They're also on a clear alignment with the fund's values: authenticity, self-expression, advocating for mental well-being. They added to the thoughtful, genuine vibe, not just background music for schmoozing.
That makes sense. And the auction always a big part of these benefits, right? Even if we don't have the specific items from this year, past years gave us an idea.
Oh yeah, the auction is a huge fundraising engine. It basically turns donating into buying these incredible, unique experiences, which drives bidding way up.
Like what kind of things?
Well, in previous years, they had things like Taylor Swift eras, tour tickets, imagine the bidding on those, movie nights with Paul Rudd, signed stuff from Steve Martin, luxury travel packages, insane stuff.
So it raises big money fast, but also adds to the event's buzz and exclusivity.
Exactly. Creates this memorable link between the cause and this amazing thing you bought or experienced.
Now, one of the things people were talking about was Benny Blanco being there, Gomez's new husband, one of their first big public events as a married couple.
It was a really powerful, very affectionate show of support. His being there just underlined how central this cause is in her life, especially now in their married life.
And he's not just showing up for appearances, right? He's actually invested.
Very invested. His commitment is documented financially.
Yeah.
At the previous year's benefit, he was actually the top donor. He won a big auction item, a $25,000 luxury villa stay, and then just threw in an extra $20,000 donation on top of that.
Okay, so he's seriously backing the fund.
Absolutely. Yeah. His consistent involvement makes their joint appearance a really strong statement of a shared mission. It's not just symbolic.
And the guest list had other big names: Tay Lautner, Jake Shane, Jay and Roddy Shetty, Drew Scott. But Gomez grounded it all with a really personal shout-out during her speech.
Yes, that was such a grounding moment, really brought it back to the core mission. She took time to acknowledge her cousin, who works right on the front lines as a school counselor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she pointed her out in the audience, said something like, she knows how it feels, she's a counselor at school, and I admire her for that. Just a simple acknowledgement, but so powerful.
How so?
Because it instantly connects this glamorous, high-profile fundraising event directly back to the grassroots level, specifically school-based mental health support, which is a huge focus for the fund's investments. It made the whole mission feel immediate, tangible, and deeply relatable, even for someone listening at home.
That's a perfect bridge, actually, between the event's presentation and the real reason behind it all. Let's move into that now, Section 3. Selena Gomez's mental health journey. This is where we really understand the why behind the fund.
Right. This personal story is the absolute foundation for everything: Rare Beauty, the Rare Impact Fund, all of it. Her struggles first really came into public view around 2016. She had to step back from her career for a bit.
Why was that?
She was dealing with pretty severe anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. And crucially, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was deeply connected to her physical health struggles, specifically her battle with lupus.
Right, the autoimmune disease. She had a kidney transplant too, didn't she?
She did in 2017. So imagine managing a serious chronic illness like lupus and severe mental distress at the same time. That complexity was a huge early catalyst for her understanding these issues deeply.
And things got even tougher for her in 2018.
Yeah, 2018 was a really difficult year. The struggles escalated, and it led to a psychotic episode. That's what prompted her to seek intensive treatment at McLean Hospital,
which is a top psychiatric facility.
One of the best in the U.S. And it was during that time, while getting treatment, that she received the diagnosis of bipolar disorder.
Getting a bipolar diagnosis is huge. Sharing it publicly, especially for someone at her level of fame, that's massive. But she didn't wait long to talk about it.
No, she didn't. And the way she did it was very her.
Yeah.
Very direct, very accessible. She revealed it publicly during an Instagram live chat with Miley Cyrus back in 2020.
On Instagram Live, wow.
Yeah. And her reason for sharing wasn't just, for the sake of sharing. It was about empowerment. She said that after years of confusion, different diagnoses, finally knowing she was bipolar actually helps me. It doesn't scare me once I know it.
Knowledge as a tool.
Exactly. That core belief that having the right information about your own mental state is a tool to manage it that's really central to all her advocacy work.
She went even deeper in 2022 with that documentary, My Mind and Me. That was incredibly raw.
Unprecedentedly raw for someone of her stature. She talked about being in 4 different treatment centers over the years. She described her early 20s as really dark, feeling completely out of control emotionally. It really pushed back against those sanitized stories we usually get.
And she didn't just say bipolar, she described what it actually felt like, the mood swings.
Yes, and that was so important for public understanding. She explained the cycling nature of the disorder, how she'd have these manic episodes, sometimes lasting weeks or months, often without any obvious trigger.
What did the mania look like for her?
She was specific. She described this intense, overwhelming compulsion to give away her money, like to everyone she met, just sharing her wealth irrationally. And then, inevitably, those highs would be followed by these devastating periods of isolation and deep, deep depression.
Wow. Detailing both sides like that.
It provided this really three-dimensional, humanizing picture of bipolar disorder, showing the potential consequences, both financial and psychological, of both the highs and the lows. Much needed honesty.
And that level of honesty, that unflinching vulnerability, that's what gives the advocacy its power, isn't it? It must have a huge ripple effect on reducing stigma.
Absolutely massive. When someone with her platform shares a complex diagnosis like that, it does several things. It validates the experiences of millions who might be going through similar things but feel ashamed or alone. It facilitates more open conversations.
It encourages people to get help.
Definitely. Research shows it significantly boosts help-seeking behavior, especially among younger people who might otherwise avoid treatment. Her platform is gigantic, one of the biggest on Earth. So her just saying, "This is my reality, it's ongoing," it sparks cultural conversation instantly.
At the benefit, though, she was also realistic. She acknowledged that even with all this work, talking about mental health is still hard.
Yeah, she understands that progress doesn't mean easy. She had outright that mental health is still a weird and hard topic. But then she immediately reframed why the work is so vital.
How so?
She emphasized that progress is possible and that mental health isn't some side issue. It's the foundation of everything: creativity, connection, safety, and hope. That shift in framing is so important for advocacy, moving mental wellness from just a problem to fix to the essential foundation for a good life.
Her advice always feels very practical, too, especially considering she lives in the glare of social media. Her point about boundaries seems crucial.
It's incredibly telling, isn't it? Someone with one of the biggest Instagram followings on the planet fiercely advocates for taking breaks. She knows firsthand how damaging that constant exposure, especially to idealized images, can be. Particularly, as she put it, when the heart is feeling fragile.
And she actually does it herself. Takes breaks.
Yes, she practices what she preaches, takes regular, necessary breaks from social media. It's not just vague advice, it's a survival strategy rooted in her own need to protect her well-being.
I think, for me, the most powerful part of her message is framing mental health as a lifelong commitment, pushing back against that idea of a quick fix.
That is absolutely the core enduring message. She
Yes.
deliberately fights that narrative that you get a diagnosis, pop a pill, do some therapy, and boom, you're cured.
Right, it's not like fixing a broken leg.
Exactly. She says it clearly. Supporting my mental health is a journey. Every day isn't perfect, not for me, not for anyone. This realistic, compassionate view normalizes the idea that maintenance, therapy, self-awareness, these are lifelong things. That normalization of the imperfect, ongoing journey. That might be her most profound contribution.
And that whole philosophy, self-acceptance over perfection, seems baked right into her company, Rare Beauty.
It is. The brand is basically a physical extension of the fund's mission. Rare Beauty's entire identity is built on challenging those toxic beauty standards that are so rampant in the cosmetics industry.
Standards that can really mess with people's mental health, especially young people.
Precisely. So the brand promotes self-acceptance, self-expression. It positions makeup not as something to hide behind, but as a tool for creativity and feeling good about yourself. The brand's success is fundamentally tied to that authentic message and its commitment to the Rare Impact Fund.
That direct link takes us perfectly into the next section, Section 4. The Rare Impact Fund as the sustainable business model for philanthropy. Moving from the personal story to the financial nuts and bolts.
Right. And this is where the analytical side gets really interesting. The Rare Impact Fund wasn't an afterthought. It was founded at the same time as Rare Beauty launched in 2020.
That timing is important.
Crucial distinction. It wasn't like, oh, the brand's making money, let's start a charity. The fund was part of the plan from day one, central to the brand's identity. Gomez herself said the whole thing started not with makeup ideas, but with wanting to help people struggling with their mental health. The mission came first.
Let's go back to that $100 million target over 10 years. You mentioned earlier how underfunded mental health is historically. Can you put that target into context?
Yeah, that number is audacious for a reason. It's directly tackling that massive historical funding gap. Think about this. Historically, only about 1.3%, 1.3, of all philanthropic investment worldwide went to mental health.
That's tiny. Shockingly tiny.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider mental health is fundamental to everything else: education, work, safety, relationships. So by setting this huge 9-figure, decade-long goal, the Rare Impact Fund is aiming for real structural change, trying to make up for decades of neglect.
Okay, let's get into the genius of the 1% model. This is the engine, right? The thing that guarantees the funding keeps flowing as the brand grows.
This is the core innovation making it sustainable. 1% of all rare beauty sales, not profit, sales goes automatically directly to the fund.
Gross sales, not net profit. That's a big difference.
Huge difference. It creates this perpetual, predictable stream of money. And it protects the charity from the ups and downs you often see with traditional fundraising models that rely heavily on big donors or annual events.
How does that compare practically to, say, a charity relying on an annual gala?
It means incredible financial stability. A traditional charity's income can swing wildly based on the economy, donor moods, even just bad weather on gala night. The 1% model is built into the business operation. As long as Rare Beauty sells products, which they are, massively, the money flows automatically.
And basing it on sales, not profit, adds another layer of stability.
Yes, because even if profit margins fluctuate due to, say, higher ingredient costs or shipping issues, the donation based on top-line sales remains consistent. This predictability is gold for the Rare Impact Fund. It means they can confidently commit to long-term grants for their partner organizations. They can support multi-year projects aimed at systemic change, not just hand out emergency funds here and there.
And that funding stream isn't a trickle. Rare Beauty's success is phenomenal.
The growth numbers are key here. We heard Rare Beauty hit $400 million in sales for the year ending May 2024. But check out the growth rates. They reportedly grew 100% from 2021 to 2022.
Doubled in a year.
And then grew 200% the following year. Tripled. So even applying just 1% to sales figures like that generates millions upon millions in reliable funding every year. That's why the $100 million goal isn't just a dream, it's actually feasible.
Wow. So the commercial success directly scales the philanthropy.
Perfectly integrated.
And this integrated model is also boosted by those corporate partnerships, right? Especially Sephora, amplifying the reach.
Sephora is absolutely essential. They sell Rare Beauty in, 36 countries. So their reach is massive. And for the third year running, in 2025, Sephora really doubled down. They donated 100% of sales from Rare Beauty's fine fragrance line during the World Mental Health Day campaign.
100%, not just the 1%.
100% of the fragrance sales during that specific campaign window, October 10th to 12th. And that campaign ran across 25 different international markets.
That's a huge boost.
It's a perfect example of strategic partnership. It uses Sephora's global retail muscle to raise extra funds and awareness way beyond what Rare Beauty could do alone. And timing it around World Mental Health Day maximizes the impact and visibility.
Before we talk about where all this money goes, we have to touch on the wedding again. How Gomez and Benny Blanco tied the fund into their own wedding. That felt significant.
It was maybe the ultimate proof of how deeply embedded this mission is for her. After their wedding on September 27, 2025, they asked guests to donate to the Rare Impact Fund instead of giving traditional wedding presents.
That's a very public statement. How did she explain that decision?
She framed it really beautifully, actually. Talked about community, gratitude, said she wanted to share with my community a little piece of happy, acknowledging that the support she gets from the public and her community is what keeps her going.
So less about gifts, more about shared purpose.
Exactly. It's way more than just ticking a box on a registry. It sends this profound message. Our private joy, our marriage, it's connected to this bigger mission. It invited their closest circle to participate in systemic change. It shows her advocacy isn't separate from her most personal, intimate life. A really powerful example for other public figures, maybe.
That total integration, business model, personal life really builds credibility, doesn't it? Okay, let's shift now to Section V. Where does the money go? The strategic reach, the global impact, the systemic change you're trying to create. They're very targeted, you said.
They have to be targeted. The need is just overwhelming. The youth mental health crisis is, frankly, at a breaking point. You see these devastating numbers, suicide being the second leading cause of deaths for Gen Z.
That's horrifying.
It is, and surveys show something like 7 out of 10 Gen Z individuals report common symptoms of depression. So the fund knows it can't just sprinkle money around, it has to invest where it can make the most difference.
And they focus on three main areas. The first is school-based solutions. Why schools?
It comes down to access and normalization. The stats show only about 16% of kids get mental health help at school. That's a huge gap.
Because kids spend so much time there.
Exactly. Most of their waking hours. And for many kids, especially from lower-income families or areas with few resources, the school counselor or school clinic might be the only place they can possibly get help.
So the fund helps put services into schools.
Right. They fund programs that integrate mental health support right into the school day, often by training teachers and staff who are already there. This does three key things. Reaches kids where they are, removes cost barriers, and this is huge, helps normalize asking for help among their peers, makes it less weird or scary.
Makes total sense. Meet them where they are. Okay, the second priority area. Networks of support, focusing on culturally responsive resources. What does culturally responsive mean in practice?
This is super critical and complex. Culturally responsive care basically means recognizing that the standard, often Western, white, middle-class therapy model doesn't work for everyone.
Right, one size doesn't fit all.
Not even close. It acknowledges that mental health struggles are often tangled up with things like systemic racism, discrimination, trauma passed down through generations, and specific cultural beliefs or stigmas about mental health.
So, like for BIPOC communities.
Yes, exactly. BIPOC youth often face disproportionately high challenges and discrimination, but they often have less access to mental health care that actually understands their specific experiences and cultural context. So the RIF invests in resources and training to make sure support is relevant and effective.
Can you give an example of what that funding might support?
Sure. It could mean funding programs that train therapists who share the same cultural or language background as the kids they're serving, like maybe a program tackling mental health stigma, specifically within Latinx families, or funding counselors who speak Spanish or Haitian Creole in communities with large immigrant populations. It's about building trust and making sure the help offered actually helps, instead of making someone feel even more isolated or misunderstood. It's about equity.
Got it. Equity in access and quality. And the third area is the most urgent, suicide prevention and crisis support.
Yeah, given that horrifying statistic about suicide being the second leading cause of death for this age group, this is absolutely non-negotiable. They focus on groups providing 247 crisis help.
Like hotlines.
Hotlines, text lines, online chat support, and crucially, specialized support for groups at higher risk. For instance, they heavily support the Trevor Project.
Which focuses on LGBTQ youth.
Right, because LGBTQ young people face unique challenges: discrimination, rejection, higher rates of suicidal thoughts. So funding specialized crisis services like the Trevor Project ensures that immediate understanding help is there right when someone needs it most.
Okay, so those are the priorities. What about the scale? You mentioned 5 continents.
Yeah, the reach is pretty impressive already. The Rare Impact Fund supports a portfolio of 30 different nonprofits, and they're spread across North America, the UK, Europe, Brazil, India, Australia. A truly global footprint.
And how many young people are they reaching?
Their current estimate is about 2 million young people reached annually, which is significant for a 5-year-old fund. But honestly, the more telling numbers are about the infrastructure they're building.
Right, not just counting heads, but measuring the systemic change. What are those metrics?
The output metrics are kind of staggering. The projects they've funded have reached into 175,000 educational systems.
175,000. What does that mean? Schools? Districts?
It likely includes schools, universities, maybe districts, basically changing how mental health is handled within those systems. Think about the ripple effect of that. Plus, they've funded training for 29,000 educators.
Wow. Equipping teachers on the front lines.
Exactly. Teachers, administrators,
Yeah.
the people interacting with kids daily. Now they're better equipped to spot trouble and help effectively. And finally, they've helped develop 445 new mental health resources. That could be anything from apps and websites to curriculum materials and guidebooks.
Yeah.
It shows a deep commitment to building lasting, scalable tools, not just running short-term programs.
What strikes me is that they're not trying to do all this themselves. They're funding existing experts, right?
Yes, and that's a sign of smart, mature philanthropy. They use a collaborative model. They know that organizations like Mental Health America, the JED Foundation, B.D. Hirsch Mental Health Services, these guys are already the leaders in their fields. They have the expertise.
So the RIF's role is more like fuel.
Exactly. Provide the reliable, scaled funding these experts need to grow their work innovate, reach more people. It frees up those organizations from having to constantly chase donations so they can focus on actually delivering services. It avoids duplication and maximizes the impact of every dollar raised.
Do we have examples of what partners have achieved because of this funding? You mentioned D.D. Hirsch.
D.D. Hirsch is a great case study. They used RIF support to build and launch something called the D.D. Hirsch Academy. It's not just a one-off training, it's a whole online platform dedicated to suicide prevention resources and courses.
Available to whom?
A wide audience: students, parents, teachers, counselors. So the RIF isn't just funding direct crisis lines, it's building the capacity within communities to prevent crises in the first place, empowering people with knowledge.
And the JE Foundation said the partnership actually influenced other funders.
Yeah, that was interesting. JED works a lot on mental health in high schools and colleges. They noted that the partnership with RIF has shown a light on the real impact to be had when making systemic changes.
What's the implication there?
It suggests that the RIF's high-profile, large-scale, long-term approach is putting a bit of positive pressure on the wider philanthropic world, encouraging others to move beyond small, scattered grants and start thinking about funding bigger, more comprehensive solutions for youth mental health. Gomez's platform helps set a new standard.
Okay, finally in this section, let's look at how they engage the community directly. They launched something called the Rare Impact Fund Giving Circle this year.
Yes, in 2025. And this is a really smart, very value-aligned move aimed squarely at Gen Z and millennials. The Giving Circle lets anyone contribute, starting at just $1 a month.
$1 a month, that's really accessible.
Super accessible. It effectively democratizes philanthropy. It lets the average fan or customer feel like they have a direct stake in the mission, regardless of how much money they have.
What's the strategic value of getting lots of small donors involved like that?
It turns passive customers into active participants, into advocates. For younger generations who really care about brands sharing their values, contributing even a small amount regularly is a way to show their alignment. It also connects these members to exclusive content and updates, making them feel part of a community. It builds this grassroots base of support that complements the big corporate and major donor money.
And they use social media heavily too, right? With things like hashtag Mental Health 101.
Oh, social media is absolutely crucial for reaching their target audience. We know that a huge percentage of millennials and Gen Z actively seek out brands and influencers who are vocal about their values.
So campaigns like that tap into that desire.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag Mental Health 101 is all about amplifying free educational content. Simple, actionable info on recognizing mental health struggles, self-care tips, how to help a friend. It reduces stigma just by making the information accessible and normal. And they're doing it right on the platforms where these young people spend their time cleverly using platforms, sometimes blamed for causing mental health issues, as platforms for solutions.
That's a really comprehensive look at the strategy and the impact. Okay, let's start to wrap this deep dive up.
Sure. That benefit on October 29th, it really felt like more than just a fundraiser. It was a powerful statement after 5 years of work. Yes, it raised a lot of money, but more than that, it showcased how an authentic, purpose-driven business model can actually drive large-scale systemic change.
It embodied that radiance and reflection theme, celebrating the progress, but also looking ahead.
Definitely. Celebrating the past 5 years, but very much setting the stage for the next 5.
In looking at the structure, the $100 million goal seems genuinely achievable.
The momentum is certainly there. They're 20% of the way there at the halfway point of the 10-year plan. You factor in Rare Beauty's continued crazy growth, the reliability of that 1% model, the deepening corporate partnerships like Sephora, these new community engagement things like the Giving Circle. Yeah, the odds look very good that they'll meet, maybe even blow past that $100 million target. They've built a system designed for long-term success.
Okay, so let's end with the big question. We've talked about the money, the programs, the infrastructure, but what's the most valuable, maybe the most lasting cultural contribution that Selena Gomez is making through all this work?
That's the really provocative thought, isn't it? Gomez herself put the tangible goal clearly. When young people reach out for help, they need to know help exists. And the fund is making sure that help does tangibly exist through resources, training, crisis lines.
But there's something more intangible.
I think so. Arguably the most valuable and enduring contribution is her relentless consistency in modeling the lifelong commitment that mental wellness actually requires.
It's not about the diagnosis, it's about the ongoing management.
Precisely. She hasn't just shared a story about a past struggle and moved on. She consistently shares the reality of managing bipolar disorder day to day. The imperfections, the ongoing need for therapy, for boundaries, for self-care. She normalizes the process.
And that normalization has power.
Huge power. It creates permission structures. It tells millions of people, young and old, that it's okay to not be okay, and that seeking and continuing to seek help isn't weakness, it's strength, it's maintenance. So beyond the incredible infrastructure and the millions raised, her most lasting legacy might just be that cultural shift, normalizing the imperfect ongoing journey of mental health and showing that committing to that journey is not failure, but a fundamental, admirable part of living a full life.
That's a really powerful place to end, a necessary perspective. Thanks so much for breaking down this incredibly sophisticated model for us today.
It was my pleasure. It's a fascinating case study in how authenticity, when it's truly embedded in the structure, can become the most powerful engine for change.
Absolutely. If you listening want to find out more about the Rare Impact Fund or any of the partner organizations we mentioned, we'll have links in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us on the deep dive.